People inside the bank froze when the glass hit the marble floor and shattered like a gunshot. It wasn't an accident, that was clear. The woman who threw it didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't look embarrassed. She looked furious. The kind of fury that doesn't happen overnight. The kind that boils quietly for years, and finally explodes. And every person inside the Manhattan Trust Bank on East 48th Street suddenly went silent. A security guard stepped forward, but stopped halfway. Because she wasn't just angry. She was shaking. Not from fear. From restraint. Like she was holding back something worse. And then, before anyone could even breathe, she slammed her hand on the manager's desk so hard the pens jumped. "You're going to fix this. Right. Now." The manager, a pale, suited man, 40-something, tried to play it calm. Please lower your voice. We can discuss your..." "Discuss?" She cut him off, voice cracking with grief and rage at the same time. "You stole 40 years of my life savings overnight, and you want to discuss?" The room felt it. Not anger. Desperation. A mother-loss kind of desperation. And that's when people stopped judging her, and started feeling afraid for her. The manager glanced at another banker, some silent signal. He was going to call security to have her escorted out quietly. She noticed. Her eyes went, empty. Not wild. Not frantic. Empty. Like something sacred inside her had already died. She whispered, barely audible. "You think I won't burn this place down to the ground today?" The entire bank held its breath. A woman near the front slowly pushed her daughter behind her. An older man loosened his tie, the tension choking him. Because nobody knew yet if this was a robbery, a breakdown, or the beginning of a tragedy. But it was already too late. This wasn't random. She had a purpose. And whatever she came to do today, she was not leaving until it was done. A man in line whispered under his breath, "She's gonna get herself arrested." An elderly black woman beside him whispered back, "No, she's already been broken." That's different. The doors at the entrance slid open, and 2 NYPD officers stepped in. Too soon. Someone had already hit the silent alarm. The manager stepped back like a coward, as if she was the problem today. But the woman saw the cops enter, and instead of panicking, she smiled. Not the kind of smile that asks for mercy. The kind that knows something everyone else doesn't. She slowly reached into her bag. And that moment, that slow-motion moment, was the first time everyone realized. She planned this. This wasn't reactive. This was premeditated. A man in a suit flinched. Please don't." She pulled out. Not a gun. A folder. Thick. Stuffed with documents. She slapped it flat on the counter. Pages spilling. Bank logos. Signatures. Long history. Transfers. "This," she said, voice now calm like ice, "is proof that this bank illegally emptied my deceased father's account and called it a system error." The room shifted. This wasn't madness. This was righteous fury. She turned slowly, addressing the entire room now, not just the manager. Her voice didn't tremble once. "My father served this country. He survived poverty. He didn't touch that account for 27 years. And the moment he died, before he was even buried, they took everything." Gasps. The kind that carry moral shock, not gossip curiosity. Even the police stopped moving. She stared dead at them. "Are you here to arrest me?" Silence. Not one officer answered. She laughed once. Bitter. "You won't. Not today. Not before I finish." And the way she said it, no one doubted she would. This is where the story truly begins. And what she does next will go beyond revenge. Because she didn't just come to destroy a bank. She came to expose a buried crime the world has ignored for decades. And before this is over, someone inside this bank will confess, or fall. The glass didn't just shatter. It screamed. It split mid-air like it was possessed, bursting inches from my face, and that sound, that violent crack, froze every living soul inside that Manhattan bank. Even the little girl by the velvet rope dropped her lollipop and didn't breathe. My daughter-in-law didn't flinch. She just stood there. One hand still dripping Chardonnay. Other hand still pointed at me like a weapon. And then, she smiled. Not a shocked smile. Not embarrassment. A smile that said she'd been waiting for me to react. But I didn't. And that unnerved her more than shattering glass ever could. Because I didn't raise my voice. Didn't step back. Didn't wipe my face. Didn't even blink. I just stared. Slow, steady. Not angry. Not scared. Just aware. Like I had already buried her in my mind. People around us started whispering. Is that her mother-in-law? Oh Lord, what kind of family is this? Security. Security. The bank manager, a short white man with a comb-over and panic in his eyes, sprinted toward us like he was running from a fire. Please, calm down. But he wasn't talking to me. No. His eyes were locked on my daughter-in-law. Because he saw it. The kind of rage that doesn't start here. The kind that began long before today. She whipped around at him, voice shaking with fake outrage. She refused to transfer the funds. She's doing this on purpose. Funds. Ah. There it was. The word she shouldn't have said. The civilians heard drama. The employees heard liability. I heard confession. Just 3 feet away, the lead banker's hands hovered over the keyboard. His screen still open. My late husband's inheritance account. The very account she demanded I liquidate tonight. The very money she thought I didn't know she was after. And suddenly every eye in that bank wasn't looking at a crazy old woman being attacked. They were looking at the woman who wanted money bad enough to throw glass to get it. She realized it too late. Her face shifted. Public mode activated. Victim mask on. Oh my God, you see what she does. She's unstable. She's always been abusive to me. I told my husband, I told him. She said it loud. That was her mistake. Because security had already arrived. And the older one, the one who didn't wear panic, didn't look away from me. Not once. He looked through me. Like he knew. Like this wasn't about money at all. Like real violence was coming, and neither of us had shown it yet. He said to me quietly, as the bank manager wiped glass off his sleeves. Do you want to press charges? He asked me. Not her. Because they saw where the knife really was, and it wasn't in my hand. My daughter-in-law choked, shocked. What? Excuse me. She turned to me again. But something had changed. The longer she stared at me, the more she realized I wasn't reacting, because I had already won. Not by fighting back. By letting her expose herself in front of witnesses. Her voice cracked. Not from fear of me. From fear of what I was clearly about to do now. Security repeated gently. Would you like us to escort her out? I didn't move. Didn't speak. I took one small step toward her. Quiet enough that the room got even quieter. She took one step back. And for the first time, she looked like prey. She tried to whisper. Tried to regain control. If you do this, I swear to God, you'll regret. I finally spoke. Slow. Soft. Deadly. Regret. I leaned in just enough that only she could hear me. You shouldn't have said funds out loud. Her face drained white. Before she could respond, a phone started ringing behind the teleglass. Loud. Urgent. The banker looked at the caller ID, froze. Then his eyes lifted to me. That's when I knew. The past had finally walked into the room. And it wasn't here for her. It was here for me. The phone behind the telecounter wouldn't stop ringing. Not a normal ring. Not a cold call, not a client line. It was the type of phone that only rings when something is wrong. Security turned their heads. The bank manager's face froze like he'd seen that number before. He rushed to pick it up, one hand still trembling, and answered in a low voice. Yes, sir. Whoever was on the other end spoke fast. Too fast. His eyes flicked to me. And in that second, his entire posture shifted. He didn't look at me like a distressed customer anymore. He looked at me like someone important had just said my name. Slowly, almost subconsciously. The bank manager straightened his tie. His voice dropped. Yes, she's here. My daughter-in-law turned. She looked at him. Then at me. Confusion started clawing at her spine. She thought she knew the battlefield. But she didn't even know what war she was in. The bank manager hung up the phone with a shaky exhale, and then approached me like a man approaching a judge. With your permission, this matter is being escalated. He didn't say to whom. He didn't have to. That phrasing wasn't for her. It was a warning, for the people who knew how to listen. I didn't respond. Not yet. But my daughter-in-law, oh, she did. Escalated? Her voice cracked, panicked now. Escalated to WHO? I'm his wife. This is my husband's money. That old bye. She didn't finish. Because the security guard who was silent all this time finally stepped forward. He wasn't the young guard. He was the older one. The one whose eyes didn't blink. He placed himself subtly between me and her, not to protect me, but to contain her. That's when it hit the crowd. The energy shifted. Not pity. Not outrage. Respect. For me. Something they didn't understand, but could feel. My daughter-in-law tried to push past him. Don't you dare act like she's some legal authority here. She's nobody. She doesn't owe WN this money anymore, that's my husband's inheritance. Hers is gone, she spent. That was her next mistake. Because the whole room heard it. Say what you want about Manhattan people being cold, but throw institutional disrespect like that at an older black woman in public. Every eyelid lowered. Every jaw stiffened. And the air changed temperature. I didn't move. I let her keep digging her grave. Because nothing destroys the evil-hearted faster than the sound of their own voice. The older security guard finally spoke. Not loud. Cold. I need you to remove your hands from the counter and take 2 steps back. She laughed. Mouth wide. Arrogant. I'm not going anywhere until that woman transfers. Now. He didn't raise his voice. That's the thing. Real danger never needs volume. She flinched. For the first time, she stepped back. And I knew. She finally felt it, the difference between causing chaos and having crossed into consequences. The bank manager cleared his throat and faced me. I've been instructed not to move a single dollar until higher clearance arrives. Higher clearance. Those 2 words shut my daughter-in-law's mouth completely. She didn't understand what that meant. But the fear told her she should. The bank continued to function around us, customers whispering, employees pretending to work while watching every move from the side of their eyes. But the tension was no longer dramatic. It was prophetic. Something was coming. Something she wasn't prepared for. Something she never even knew existed. Do you want to wait in a private room while we resolve this? The manager asked, only to me. I shook my head once. No. I wanted her to stand in public when the truth arrived. I wanted every eye in this room to witness. She didn't want a private room either, but not because she was brave. Because she counted on the crowd overpowering the truth. A mistake. Because this time, the crowd wasn't hers. Minutes passed. Then another phone rang. Not behind the counter this time. The private line of the older security guard. He picked it up, his eyes never leaving me. 1 second. 2. Then he spoke quietly. Yes, sir, understood. He hung up. And he rebut-toned his jacket. Not security posture. Formal posture. That's when my daughter-in-law made the final mistake of her life. She smirked, believing she had one. Yeah. Call whoever you want. I owe WN this family now. I'm the wife. I control the money. And legally, she's done. You hear me? She's nothing. Every syllable she said would be the reason she lost everything. Because the door opened behind her. Quietly. No one noticed but me. Until every bank employee suddenly straightened. Not for her. For whoever just walked in. No one heard the door open. But everyone felt it. A silence spread across the bank like a cold wave. No announcement, no footsteps. just that instinctual hush humans get when something powerful enters the room. My daughter-in-law was too busy smirking to feel it. Her voice still loud, hands flailing, covering her insecurity with volume. Do y'all even understand? She has no power anymore. Everything belongs to me. That money, that legacy, I am his wife. I am the... Then she saw their faces. The tellers. The manager. Even the customers. All suddenly standing straighter. Looking past her. Not at the chaos. Not at the glass on the ground. At the person behind her. She turned. And her confidence died right there. Walking in, slow, calm, deliberate, was a man in an ash charcoal overcoat. Older. Tall. Silver at the temples. Black. Unmistakably powerful. The kind of presence that did not need to speak to be obeyed. He didn't rush. He didn't scan the room. He knew the room already belonged to him. The older security guard lowered his eyes, respectfully, not in fear, but in allegiance. The bank manager literally stepped back. Not toward safety. Out of his way. My daughter-in-law tried to speak. Sir, He walked straight past her like she didn't exist. Like she wasn't even air. And stopped 3 feet in front of me. Not smiling. Not stern. Calculating. He spoke my name. Quiet. But the weight of it made the air shift. He spoke it like he'd spoken it many years before, but with a respect that said once upon a time, he only spoke it with permission. And that was when the room understood. I wasn't the old woman being attacked. I was the one they didn't know they should have been afraid of. The man didn't look at my daughter-in-law. Not once. He never acknowledged her existence. His eyes were only on me, as if no one else in that building mattered. Do you want me to proceed? He asked. That was it. 1 sentence. And my daughter-in-law's world began to burn. Because he didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask what I wanted done. He asked if I wanted him to proceed. Which meant everything was already in motion. Her panic started seeping out of her pores. Proceed. Proceed what? I'm the legal wife, you cannot just. He did not turn. He simply lifted his hand. And the bank manager moved before she even finished speaking. I'm going to need you to step aside. Longest 3 seconds of her life. What? No. You can't. He gently but firmly guided her away from the counter. Not as a favor. As compliance. Her voice went feral now, panic bleeding into desperation. You don't understand. He's dead. She has no rights to. That was when the man finally, slowly, turned his head. And just looked at her. No words. Just one look. She went completely silent. Jaw trembling. Eyes darting. Not because she recognized him, but because something primal in her recognized his kind. The kind of man women like her only meet once, right before everything is taken from them. He turned back to me. I nodded, once. Permission. He reached into his coat. Not for a weapon. For a document. Thick. Bound. Official. He placed it on the counter. The bank manager opened it. Went pale. Then looked at me, awaiting only signal, not approval. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. He understood. He picked up the phone. Dialed an internal line. Activate directive on account 47L effective immediately. No further authorization required from inheritors or secondary parties. Inheritors. Secondary. That's when my daughter-in-law realized something she never considered. She was never first. She was never anything. Her voice broke, raw now, no more performance. What are you doing? Not angry. Scared. Terrified. The man in the overcoat finally faced her directly. His eyes were calm. Unforgiving. Executing her husband's original instructions. Her knees buckled. Not from understanding. From not understanding, but knowing she didn't want to. The bank lights buzzed faintly above us. People watched, no longer curious spectators. Witnesses to a fall. The kind no one walks away from. And it hadn't even begun yet. Because if she thought losing the money was the end, She had no idea that the money wasn't even the real revenge. Her voice was at my shoulder before I saw her, sharp, trained, familiar. "Excuse me, you don't have authorization to be here." I didn't even flinch. Because I knew it was her. For the first time since that day in the Manhattan Plaza Global Bank branch, the day she humiliated me in front of her staff and laughed like I was a beggar, I was face to face with Charlene Vaughn. She didn't recognize me. Not yet. She didn't see last year's exhaustion carved out of my face anymore. She didn't see the trembling woman who stood in that freezing lobby begging for her own money. She only saw a woman in a midnight suit with a badge too high level to question. Charlene said tightly, keeping her voice corporate soft like there were microphones everywhere. "This is a restricted floor." I turned, slow, letting her finally get a look at me. The flicker that hit her eyes was microscopic. 1/10 of a second. Barely readable. But it was there. Recognition. Buried under denial. She started. Her throat stopped the rest. 3 of her employees froze behind her, wide-eyed, half convinced I was a federal agent. Charlene's posture shifted, not confident, not scared, something more dangerous. Calculating. I didn't let her speak again. "I'm here to return something you left unfinished," I said calmly. She swallowed. Hard. "I have no idea what you're talking about. 1 year ago. You remember. That landed like a sniper shot." Her composure fractured. Not exploded, just hairline cracks. The employees glanced at each other. Good. Let them watch. She knew she couldn't lose public composure. High-level New York corporate women don't scream. They don't tremble. They tighten. They talk in landmine-safe syllables. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. I didn't walk closer. I didn't lower my voice. "I want to see if power looks different up close, when your audience isn't sobbing and desperate." Her jaw locked. She moved forward, dismissing her staff with one look. The elevator doors hadn't even closed behind them before she hissed under her breath. "You don't know what you're doing." Finally. The mask drops. I tilted my head slightly. "Funny. That's exactly what you said before telling me to come back when I wasn't dressed like struggle." Her eyes flashed. "It was procedure," she snapped. "Your account was under review. You were flagged for a fraud risk investigation." "You lied," I said simply. She shut up. Silence. The kind that wakes up memory. That day came back for her whether she wanted it or not. People watching. Phones recording. Her voice mocking. Her smirk. The security guard reaching for me. The tears I refused to let fall in front of them. I watched her eyes now. Wide awake. No witnesses. No camera. Just me. And the version of me she thought would never rise. "It was never personal," she finally said. "Liar. It always is." Something in my voice darkened, without volume. Without rage. "Charlene. You weren't paid to laugh." Her breathing faltered. For the first time, she looked afraid. She masked it fast, but it was too late. That was all I needed. I slowly reached into my coat. She tensed, every inch. I pulled out, not a weapon. A folded document. I placed it on the table. Perfectly centered. Her hands didn't move. "What is that?" "Your exit," I said softly. The hesitation in her movement revealed everything. She was terrified to touch it. Like fate was inked inside. She opened it. Froze. The paper was nothing but a printed transcript. Her voice. Word for word. Every insult. Every threat. Every illegal sentence she spoke to me that day, perfectly recorded. Her face went blank. Not distressed, blank. Corporate survival mode. I leaned in just 1 inch. "Before you ask, yes. The audio exists. Yes. So do the faces. The files are already sent in time-locked redundancy to 3 off-site secure holders. Nobody can stop their leak but me." Her throat moved. But no sound left it. There it was. The exact silence I prayed for that night. I walked out of that bank with my dignity in pieces. Not screaming. Not begging. Powerless. She exhaled thinly. Her voice, when it came out, was so quiet it wasn't for defense. It was for confession. What do you want? The win was too easy. But this wasn't victory yet. Because I didn't want compliance. I wanted confession. Yes, I replied calmly. Let's talk about what I want. She braced herself. I didn't rush. I let time suffocate her. 1 year ago, I said, you laughed while stripping a working mother of her right to access her own money. You made sure I walked out broken. Today, you will understand what it feels like to have your future rearranged by the same kind of cruelty. Her hands were visibly shaking now. Small. But real. Are you here to destroy me? She whispered. I let the moment sit. She deserved to feel that question echo. Then I answered truthfully. No. I'm here to see if there's anything left in you worth not destroying. For just 2 seconds. Her eyes filled. Not tears. Humanity. She masked it. But I saw it. And that changed everything. Not forgiveness. Not pity. But control. Righteous control. I took the document back without warning. She flinched like I'd ended her life. That told me everything about her fear. Good. Charlene, I said quietly, whether you walk out of this building with your career will depend entirely on what your next sentence is. The silence that followed felt like scripture. Charlene didn't blink. She knew one wrong inch of breath could detonate her entire future. This is where people like her pray for scripts to exist, PR manuals, crisis lawyers, damage control playbooks. But this time, there was none. She started. Nothing followed. Her throat locked. Good. That meant she finally understood this wasn't about business. This was human court. I'm listening, I said, calm as a surgeon. Dead silence. Fluorescent lights hummed above us like interrogation music. Finally, her voice. Barely audible. I was wrong. Not the words I expected. Not the tone. Not a strategy. It wasn't performance. It was raw. I stared. She wasn't looking at me like a threat anymore. She was looking like somebody facing a ghost she thought would never rise again. She swallowed hard. Then, slowly, her spine straightened. She didn't break eye contact. I was wrong, she repeated, firmer. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I did it anyway. No script. No excuses. Just truth. It hit the air like holy fire. I said nothing. I needed her to continue. She did. My team saw you as a problem. An inconvenience. And I enjoyed it. There it was. Rot spoken out loud. A confession she would never survive if heard outside that room. I waited. She kept going. I didn't care if you had children. I didn't care if you missed rent. I didn't care if you ended up begging on a sidewalk. I just cared that someone like you had the nerve to look me in the eye. The venom wasn't active now. It was memory. Something she was choking on. I built my career making people feel small before they had a chance to make me feel small, she whispered. And for the first time, I see what I have become. It wasn't apology. It was realization. The first sign a soul still existed in her body. My voice dropped. What if I never came back? Her answer didn't hesitate. I would never have thought about you again. Truth. Sharp. Surgical. No lies to soften the blade. And now? I asked. She shut her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. I don't know if I should thank you or beg you not to ruin me. I stepped closer. 1 step. She didn't move. Fear had her bones. Not of exposure. Of reflection. Her voice dropped into something I had never heard from her before. Genuine. If you came here tonight to burn me down, I won't stop you. Silence. She meant it. She had already accepted it. The fall. The end. I studied her carefully. And then, for the first time, I said, you're finally telling the truth. Her eyes flickered. Not hope. Shock. Because she felt it. I wasn't here to watch her panic. I was here to watch her change. So I asked her the only question that mattered. If I gave you one chance to redeem everything you've done, not with words, but with irreversible action, would you take it? Her breath stopped. Then, hand trembling, she nodded. Not desperate. Not dramatic. But real. Quiet. Surrendered. Humbled. I will do whatever you ask, she said. If she was lying, I'd know. She wasn't. I turned my back to her and walked to the window overlooking Manhattan's night skyline. Power doesn't always move in sound. Sometimes the loudest victory is silence. I spoke without turning. Then you're going to help me fix everything you broke. She stayed frozen. Processing. Realizing this wasn't revenge. This was reconstruction. Of everything. Her voice trembled. Fix how? I finally turned back around. Not smiling. Not merciful. Controlled. In the way that scares you more than losing everything, I said. By doing the work. She understood instantly. The kind of work that couldn't be PR'd. Not performative service hours. Not sympathy interviews. The kind of work that costs your ego more than your career. She exhaled shakily. But she nodded. Not because she was ready. Because she knew she would never be ready. But she had no choice but to rise anyway. Tell me what to do, she whispered. I held her stare. And for the first time since I walked into that bank a year ago, I was not the one fighting to breathe. Tomorrow morning, I said quietly, you're going to walk back into this building, not as a gatekeeper, but as a woman who owes her life to the people she once stepped on. She flinched, but didn't resist. I continued. You will hand-deliver the first correction yourself. Her voice was barely air. To who? I didn't blink. To me. Her expression changed. For the first time, not fear, but understanding. And right before chapter 6 ends, she whispered one word. Okay. The bank doors slammed open so hard the walls rattled, and every single head inside snapped around like they were wired to the sound. I thought it was another guard. Another attempt to calm chaos. But then I saw him. Jonathan. My son. Breathing like he'd sprinted through a storm. His tie crooked. Face flushed. His eyes, bloodshot, scanning, calculating, then locking on me. He didn't look at his wife first. He didn't ask questions. He charged straight at me. Mom, he hissed through his teeth, grabbing my arm like he was rescuing me from a burning building, but his voice carried the kind of anger that told me he didn't come here to understand anything. He came here already choosing a side. Come on. We're leaving, he growled. Leaving? Before the blood on my face had even dried. Before a single soul had even asked me what happened. Callie, his wife, the one who threw the glass at me, stood on the other side of the bank crying into a tissue, trembling so perfectly you'd think she was auditioning for a movie role. Jonathan looked at her. And I felt it before it happened. He ran to her first. Not me. Her. She lifted her head at the perfect dramatic moment, voice cracked, Jonathan. I didn't mean to, as if she were the one attacked. And just like that, the room shifted again. At least 5 bystanders softened. Someone whispered a pitying poor thing. Poor thing. My blood was still on the marble. Jonathan grabbed her face gently, like she was glass. Are you okay? What did my mother do to you? The floor went silent. That sentence cut through me harder than the glass did. But I held my ground. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I watched. Because in that moment, I knew. There had never been confusion. There had never been a question. There had never been a let me see both sides first. Jonathan had come here for damage control. Not truth. He stood up slowly, and when he turned back to me, his eyes were dark. Cold. Like a man facing off with an enemy, not his mother. Let's go. Now, he said again, but this time low, controlled. Before you embarrass yourself any more than you already have. Embarrass. Myself. Inside the bank, strangers watching, blood leaking from my cheek, and yet I was the problem. One of the security guards stepped forward like he was about to interrupt, but froze, watching Jonathan's body language. Silent power. Money posture. That expensive man confidence. Oh, I knew that stance too well. That wasn't protection. That was possession. Jonathan looked the guard dead in the eye. One single look that said, "Don't." And nobody did. Not one person stopped him as he pulled me by the wrist like I was the culprit. He didn't offer a coat. Didn't ask if I was hurt. Didn't care that I was bleeding. I was being removed. But as we reached the glass doors, Callie spoke. Not to him. To me. Softly. Barely above a whisper. But sharp enough to slice through bone. "I warned you, didn't I? You should have just signed." Quietly. My hand froze mid-air. My eyes met hers. And in that 1 second, I knew. This was never about disrespect. Never about wine. Never about pride. This was about money. About control. About the will. The bank's reflection glass caught me, and I saw myself clearly for the first time, bruised, humiliated, and almost escorted out like a criminal, while the woman who assaulted me played sweet victim. She wanted me gone before I could expose her. And Jonathan? He was already hers. Outside, the New York wind hit my face, but it wasn't cold. It was clarifying. He opened the car door. Expected me to comply. Like obedience was muscle memory. And for a heartbeat, I almost did. Almost. Until, through the glass doors, I saw it. The security camera feed. Big. Bright. Impossible to miss. Front entrance angle. Clear shot. Callie. Throwing the glass. And suddenly, everything inside me went silent. Then steady. Then sure. I looked at Jonathan. Then at the camera screen behind him. Then back at his wife, frozen, realizing what I was looking at. And just before I stepped into the car, I smiled. Not sweet. Not polite. Calculated. Because in that moment, with absolute calm, I remembered. I was the one who taught him everything he knows. But I never taught him everything I am capable of. Jonathan got in the driver's seat. Callie pretended to be fragile. And I leaned back into that leather, eyes open, pulse slow. Because now, I wasn't reacting. I was planning. And they had no idea that I had already started winning. And my revenge would not be loud. It would be permanent. Jonathan drove in total silence, only the muffled sounds of New York traffic humming beyond the tinted windows. He didn't look at me once. Not in the mirror. Not even accidentally. One would think I didn't exist at all, except for the hard clench of his jaw, telling me he was barely holding himself from exploding. Callie sat in the passenger seat like a porcelain doll, hands folded, fragile, angelic. It would have been funny if it wasn't so grotesque. Her reflection in the window showed the faintest smirk. She thought she had won. She thought the glass, the performance, the tears, the crowd, the husband's instant loyalty had sealed her victory. But that camera had changed everything. She didn't know I had seen it. Jonathan pulled up to their brownstone in Harlem like a man escorting an intruder, not his mother. The way he stepped out, came to my door, opened it sharply, like I was something to be dealt with, not someone to be cared for. Inside, he said low. A command. Not a suggestion. I stepped out with dignity. With quiet. With stillness that made his rage look immature, juvenile. And I saw the flicker in his eyes, like he momentarily remembered who raised him. The moment shattered when Callie slipped her hand into the crook of his arm, trembling. Always trembling. The performance wasn't done. She'd keep it going until she owned him. Inside, the house was dim. Too quiet. No TV. No scent of dinner. No ordinary life. Just sharp air, staged silence, the kind that only exists where too many secrets live. Jonathan closed the door. Hard. Then, turned to me like a prosecutor. What the hell were you thinking? No concern. No apology. No single hint of, are you okay? Not even did she hurt you. Just, why did you not behave? I was thinking, I replied steadily, about how a grown woman throwing a glass at her husband's mother inside a bank is not normal behavior. He stepped closer like I'd crossed a line. Callie flinched. Not from fear. From triumph. She wanted him riled. She needed him to choose violence, verbally, emotionally, so that I would look like a toxic force corrupting her peace. "Stop," I said calmly, raising my hand. Jonathan blinked. Callie froze. "I will not let the two of you stage a trial where I am the criminal," I continued. Jonathan scoffed. "Mom, you embarrassed me. In public." "Ah. Not you were hurt. Not she attacked you. No. Just, you embarrassed me." There it was. Generational. Cultural. Deep-rooted. My son wasn't defending a wife. He was defending his image. And in that moment, I felt a sadness so old, it wasn't even sadness. It was clarity. Callie watched me, closely, studying. Trying to assess how undone I was. How breakable. So I gave her nothing. I simply breathed. And observed. "Do you want to know something interesting?" I asked softly. Jonathan stiffened. Callie's eyes narrowed. "At the bank," I said, taking a slow step forward, "right above the exit doors, there is a crystal-clear, public-facing security camera. I saw it." The exact moment her heart slammed against her ribcage. She went still. Her eyes. Everything. For the first time, fear. Jonathan looked between us, confused. "What camera?" he asked. But I didn't answer him. I only looked at her. And smiled. A slow, heavy, dangerous smile. Her mask fractured. Just a flicker. Just 1 second, but enough. Jonathan saw it. His eyes darted back to her. "Callie," he said slowly. "What is she talking about?" She blinked, unprepared. Her breath hitched. The expression was microscopic, but I caught it. She had not planned for this. I tilted my head gently. "Tell him," I whispered. She turned slowly. Face pale now. Voice barely holding its shape. "She's manipulating you, Jonathan. Your mother is lying again. She's... Again." I cut in sharply, for the first time raising my voice. Not loud. But deep. Final. He flinched. I had never raised my voice at my son before. Not once. The shock that took over the room was nuclear. I stepped toward her, and she stepped back. "You threw a glass at my face," I said, tone lethal but controlled, "in front of God and half of Manhattan. But you made one mistake." I leaned in. "You forgot this isn't the 1950s. Cameras don't lie." She stopped breathing. Jonathan's chest rose hard. "Callie. Is she telling the truth?" That, right there, was the moment she knew she only had seconds left of her illusion. But before she could speak, I made sure those seconds killed her slowly. "As of right now," I said calmly, "your lawyers should be getting a call. Because I am pressing assault charges." Silence. Exploded. Jonathan reeled, shook, his loyalty trembling. She snapped. "What? You witch, how dare?" And then she slipped. Right in front of him. She dropped the performance. Her voice was raw, venomous, unfiltered. "You stupid, old, bitter." Jonathan froze. She realized. Too late. Everything shattered. Her pretty act. Her trembling. Her angelic disguise. Gone. And then, Jonathan, finally, saw her. For the first time. "Get out," he breathed. To her. Not me. Her world stopped. "Jonah, baby, no. You don't understand. She's lying." "Callie," I said. "Get out." His voice roared. Neighbors could have heard it. She stared at him, disbelieving. Then at me. And I gave her one single look that told her everything. This is not over. But it is no longer your game. She left like a storm that didn't realize it had never controlled the sky to begin with. Jonathan turned to me, shaken, breathless, shame bleeding into his eyes. And for the first time since the glass hit me, he looked like my son again. "Mom," he finally whispered. But I didn't answer. Because it wasn't time for grace yet. It was time for truth. And what I was about to reveal next would destroy far more than just Callie. Jonathan stood there frozen, like the weight of 10 different truths had all hit him at once. The house was silent now, Callie's heels still echoing in the hallway like a ghost that refused to accept she'd been removed. He looked at me like a boy again. Lost. Confused. Ashamed. Mom, what else aren't you telling me? Not angry. Not defensive. Afraid. Because he knew, for the first time in his adult life, that I had been holding back. And I had. Not because I was scared of him, but because I was scared for him. You think this marriage was your choice, Jonathan? He frowned. What are you talking about? So I sat down. Calm. Steady. Telling it not to punish him, but to prepare him. She didn't marry you because she loved you. She married you because she was placed here. On purpose. By her family. His face tensed. I continued. Her uncle is Russell Dean Cole. The moment I said that name, the blood drained from his face. Oh my God. Yes. The same Russell Cole convicted in 2012 of running one of the largest inheritance laundering rings in New York State. The same man who built an empire by coercing vulnerable elders to rewrite wills under pressure. The same man who got out early on good behavior. Callie wasn't just evil. She was trained. Her fake fragility. Her perfect tears. Her compliance until she had the ring. All of it was strategic warfare. You think she threw that wine glass because she lost her temper, Jonathan? She did it because I refused to sign over your father's South Carolina land to your name. His head snapped up. What? She doesn't want you to have it. She wants control of it. Silence fell like smoke. He whispered into the floor. She asked me about that land. Weeks ago. Of course she did. And she thought, I continued quietly, that if she could make me look unstable, violent, the courts would side with her if I suddenly lost mental capacity and my estate needed legal guardianship. Realization hit him like an earthquake. He staggered backward. Almost Saturday. Jesus. Mom. I leaned forward. I have known for months. That's why I stalled. That's why I pretended to agree. That's why, when she smiled at me too sweetly, I smiled back. I needed time, Jonathan. To do what? He whispered. And this is where everything changed. I have already rewritten my will, 2 months ago. She gets nothing. That South Carolina land. It doesn't go to you. It doesn't go to her. It goes *** directly to your daughter. My granddaughter. In a trust she cannot access. His eyes flooded. Mom. And I placed one more clause, I finished, sitting taller. If anything suspicious happens to me, any sudden accidents, any attempt to declare me incompetent. I leaned in. The will automatically reassigns all property to charity. So she can't profit from my death either way. The room held its breath. Jonathan did too. He was shaking. But not in fear now. In awakening. He sat slowly. Face in his hands. A broken man and a freed boy at the same time. I almost let her destroy you, he whispered. No, I said gently. You almost let her destroy you. He looked up at me, eyes red. What do we do now? I stood. For the first time in years. I felt powerful. We let her think she still has a chance. He blinked. Why? Because snakes are easiest to catch when they believe they're still winning. He stared at me. Then, for the first time since that bank, my son smiled. Not out of joy, but because he now saw exactly who his mother really was. Not a victim. Not a timid elder. Not a woman to be pitied. A strategist. A survivor. A woman who did not raise a son to become a fool, only to quietly watch him stay one. The front door, somewhere in the distance, slammed again. She was back. The storm had returned. But this time, I wasn't bracing for the attack. I was ready to finish the game. And when I turned toward that hallway, slow, composed, unafraid, I knew one thing for certain. This story would not end with screaming, or chaos, or broken glass. It would end with power. Mine.